Today, we're issuing our latest report on the Irish residential market. This report looks back over the performance of the market during 2020 and looks to the outlook for the year ahead. When we look back over 2020, the market opened in January and February to fairly robust levels of demand. And then, unfortunately, we obviously moved into a lockdown period. However, once we reopened our doors on June the 8th, 2020, we saw demand levels really pick up pace, and activity levels were very strong in the latter 6 months of the year. In overall terms, transaction activity probably fell somewhere around 15% last year, but that in itself is quite a strong outturn given the challenges that were evident throughout the year. In terms of supply, we began 2020 with quite constrained levels of supply, and we had an expectation that we would deliver somewhere between 25 or 26,000 units to the marketplace. Unfortunately, the lockdown period prevented that from occurring, and the likely outturn is that we would have built somewhere in the region of 19,000 units last year. The stock of available second-hand accommodation also contracted as a result of the first lockdown in particular, and when we reopened our doors on June the 8th, we had about 18,100 units available for sale throughout the entire country, which is approximately 1% of the housing stock, and 3,700 units available for sale in Dublin. Today, early indications are that that stock level has contracted further, with less than 1% of the stock available in the country overall today. In terms of price performance, 2018 and 2019 had seen very negligible levels of price growth in the marketplace. We did see a modest uptick in price performance this year, largely as a result of those supply side constraints. Average values in the country rose 1.2% over the course of the year, while average values in Dublin grew by 0.5%. This price inflation compares to a growth of 0.2% in the country in 2019 and a contraction in values in Dublin. In terms of the rental sector, we saw a somewhat more deflated level of rental growth in the year past. The stock of available accommodation improved during the year as many people with accommodation in short-term lets or holiday lets brought that stock to the longer-term market. And the demand for rental accommodation did contract somewhat as people returned home to wherever that may be during the first lockdown in particular. However, we haven't solved the rental crisis last year, and as we look into this year, we would expect to see the demand for rental accommodation pick up, particularly in the latter half of the year, and that supply could further contract, as a result of which we could expect to see a stronger level of rental inflation in 2021 than we saw in 2020. In terms of price growth in the year ahead, because of those very tight levels of supply, there will be some upward pressure on prices. But given the strength of the macroprudential policy rules, we would expect that price growth to still be in low single-digit figures in the country overall and indeed in Dublin. So as we look into the year ahead, we do have a market which began last year with tight levels of supply, and that supply has contracted further. So in other words, our housing crisis has become more challenging in the past 12 months. Every effort needs to be made now to underpin further growth in stock in the year ahead and allow the marketplace to see a supply side increase for all types of accommodation throughout the entire country. We do need to address the rental crisis and ensure that we do not see a return to rapidly rising rents in the months ahead. Price inflation is likely to be modest but marginally positive throughout the entire country, with slightly higher growth, I think, in the premium market rather than in the starter home market.